Womanhood, womanhood, womanhood. Yeah, we love this album. What's up, homies? Thank you very much for tuning into the Impossible Variety Podcast. I appreciate you being here. We like to do music reviews here. We like to do football stuff here. But today we're going to talk about music, and specifically today we're going to talk about PVRIS' Evergreen. This album came out a while ago, but I wanted to do a review on it and I talk about it for a while. There might be some people here who might be from possible job places, some new listeners, some old listeners. Appreciate you being here either way. This is going to be a little bit different because I'm actually going to try and branch out to video form as well. It's going to be a learning experience for me. It's going to be a learning experience for you, probably. Let me know of some advice that you have for me as well, because I always try to make my content go up and up and up and try to do the best I can. So let me know. Give me some constructive criticism.
Don't hurt me. Don't hurt my feelings too bad.
But that being said, let's jump right into PVRIS' Evergreen. So PVRIS' Evergreen came out in 2023 in July 14th, 2023. Now, this album is the fourth album of the discography. Their previous albums were White Noise, All We Know of Heaven, Use Me, and the fourth one, Evergreen. So this is technically the fourth official LP that they've released. And I will say, PVRIS, I don't know how they reinvent themselves every single time that they do stuff, but somehow there's always something different, new, and unique that's coming to the table that I would think that they wouldn't be able to pull out of their tricks, but they're pulling out of their tricks. That has to do a lot with the credit of Lynn and just how well musically versed that she is in this entire genre and how she has been in the entire career of PVRIS. So that being said, one sentence I can tell you to describe this album, Evergreen, by PVRIS, is I would say it is optimal for the club or driving. No in between. Those are the two places. But it's not specifically like just regular leisurely driving. I will tell you right now, when you listen to this album while driving, you will probably go over the speed limit. Don't go over the speed limit. Just saying. Now, that being said, the only reason why I say that is because of the fact that I actually put this on while I'm driving. I'm much of a driving album guy. I like to listen to it while I'm on the road and like to kind of analyze it and listen to it from there. But I will say right now that it made me feel like I wanted to go fast. Like, it's a very driving album for pretty much the entire way through. It is quite just driving pretty much all the way through, and it has that driving vibe to it. There are a lot of different kind of flavors of the sonic palette that she comes up with, but like for a good part of the first half of the album, it's a lot of kind of like driving riffs. Now, like I said before, it is such an arc from their earlier albums. The earliest album that they had, which was White Noise, they started out band from Lowell, Massachusetts, with kind of this pop punk sound, but it was more on the pop side of stuff, using a lot of kind of synth and electronic elements to really almost like churches with V, to kind of bring their edge on the pop punk side. It wasn't even really pop punk. It was more like pop alternative rock as well, but there was a lot of instrumental rock elements in their first album, and then they expanded on that with their next album. But they can go all over the place. They really show their kind of musical capabilities, and Lynn is kind of the mastermind of all of the projects for PVRIS as well, but we have to credit her a lot because like she has a lot of talent, no doubt. Personally, for me, I've seen them twice perform live. One time, both in Portland, Maine. Once they performed on top of a building. Comment down below or let me know if you actually remember this. But once upon a time during Old Port Fest, they actually performed on top of a Bank of America building. They used to have this festival where a bunch of artists would come and perform, and it used to be like local, but then they expanded quite a bit. Like they had the Somerset playing right before them, which is another pop punk band. You could book these bands for State Theater, or you could book them for Aura, any one of those. Now, that being said, we saw them on top of a rooftop, and I saw them on top of a rooftop, and it was kind of interesting because they took a while to set up their stuff because some people were just going with an acoustic set because it was the easiest way to go, but they decided to do the full setup, drums and everything, so that's probably why it took so long to get their sound set up. And I also saw them at the old Port City Music Hall. It's now Arcadia now, but at the old Port City Music Hall, a sold out show completely, and everyone there was very, very excited to be there, and I think she was excited to be here. Lynn even remembered actually saying a story about playing on top of a building too, so she remembers quite well as well, but maybe they'll come back at some point. I hope so, but that being said, those are the 2 times I saw them, and I will tell you right now, great live band. Even with some members kind of flipping in and out of the group and everything, great live band. Lynn always brings it every single time. Like I was saying before, the range of this album can kind of be displayed from the slower tracks on this album. There's going to be probably at least 1 or 2 songs on here that you could save to your like songs. I guarantee it. There's a lot of accessibility with what Lynn is doing with the album as a whole right here. Even if you're a new fan, even if you're an old fan that jumped off the bus for a little bit, it is a cool album. One way that Lynn shows her range with this album is on Headlights and Anywhere But Here. Shows the range that the album has, and it can go from a sonic palette that's like, it's similar in nature, but it's a slower speed, less busy nature. She can tone it back any one of those times right there. So like it has the same production value in terms of a sonic palette, and you can kind of hear all the songs sound connected in that type of sense, but it still shows range with the overall songwriting of it. Now, the 3 songs I think to check out that are kind of the pinnacle tracks of the entire album are Animal, Good Enemy, and Love Is A. Those are the 3 because Love Is A shows kind of that slower range. Animal and Good Enemy, I will say, even though they're great songs and they have life on their own, they can sound monotonous at first. A lot of those driving riffs have somewhat of a similar pattern to them. They get their life with them with the vocals that are added onto them from Lynn and all the other instrumentals themselves, but the riffs do sound like semi-similar for some of them. Hype Zombie is a slower riff, but it still has kind of the same type of tones. It's a very dirty, gritty tone on the bass right there, and a lot of these riffs are very distorted, really trashy, not trashy as in a bad thing, but trashy kind of like dirty sounding bass riffs right there. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can sound monotonous at first. But I think what creates life around those specific songs right there is that even though there's riffs that sound similar, the song structure around it is different overall from song to song. Like I was saying before, Lynn Gunn always shows out for every single one of the albums that she's been putting out, and I think this is some of the strongest vocal work that she's done to date. She took a lot of risks, and I think PVRIS took a lot of risks on this. I should clarify that we cannot discredit at all. Brian is also the bassist and programming person for PVRIS. I think Lynn takes a good part of the chunk of it as well, but we can't forget about Brian as well because he does play for live shows, and we have to credit him as well for collaborating as well as he does with Lynn.
Anyways, back to the story. So
probably some of the best, and I think you can really hear her trying to expand herself quite a bit in this album. You can hear her taking more chances, not just with her vocal work as well, but like there are some other creative risks and sound choices, especially with songs like Take My Nirvana and Sentimental. Those ones were very creative sound choices. There's a sound bite that's in Sentimental that's a little strange at first. It came off strange to me at first as well, but it's kind of funny in a good way. It's kind of funny because it's not a sound that you're kind of thinking of. It's a chopped vocal. Check out the song. You'll know what I mean. You can hear her go up into her range as well. She uses kind of a lot of her upper range. She's full voicing quite a bit of it. And then she's also doing kind of a lot of mixed work as well. She's really just kind of like using her upper range in ways that I haven't heard in many of the past albums. And she's doing it with a lot of grit and a lot of kind of punch to it, which I honestly hadn't seen, but it came off really well. Now, basically, lyrically speaking, it's not the most meaningful album in the world necessarily, but I will say this: self-confidence and womanhood is oozing off this album. Evergreen and Goddess are the tracks to check out for those two specific ones. Goddess is, I will say, probably a big feminist anthem right there. It's truly just taking a bunch of womanhood into her own hands and just being like, this is mine, nothing you can do about it. Now, that being said, Evergreen kind of also has the same thing. Evergreen also, fun fact, little side note, I love songs that start out and you don't know how they're going to develop, and then they develop in a way that surprises you. Listen to the beginning of Evergreen. It has like a fake out intro where you think it's going to sound like one specific thing, and then it just sounds completely different. It's a really cool concept that some artists do, not a whole lot of them do, but it flips my brain around quite a bit. In terms of PVRIS's future plans, they are going on a 2024 tour, headlining all across the world with Pale Waves, Scene Queen, Bruises, and Sophie Powers. They are trekking across Europe, and they're also going to be taking on North America as well. For me, the closest I think is Boston. It probably won't happen for me because I can't go to every single live show in the history of live shows. I sure would like to, but concerts happen, and they're going to do well on that run no matter what anyways. Evergreen, to recap, is a really good addition onto their discography as well, and I think it's probably one of their strongest albums to date just because of the risks that they decided to take, and the risks that they decided to take paid off. This is a good example of an album when you compare it to the rest of their discography. This is an example of an album that adds onto it and takes risks, but it doesn't take so much risk with stuff that it ruins the album totally. Like, there's a lot of personality that comes off this album, and you can hear it. That being said, make sure you follow me on Twitch. Make sure you follow me on YouTube. Everything, all the links are down there, and you can check out any of the merch that I have available in the description as well. I appreciate you being here. Thank you very much for watching or listening. Be good to yourself along the way. Check out PVRIS's Evergreen and catch them on tour with Pale Waves, Scene Queen, Bruises, and Sophie Powers when they come to a city near you. And be good to yourself along the way. Bye!